Skills on the platform, back at you with another one. What's up, YouTube? I actually want to talk about mindset today. Spirit moved me to talk about mindsets, right? On how people think, right? So you have, let's just go ahead and take it there. You have an employee mindset and you have a entrepreneur mindset, right? Oh, I want to definitely get into this one here. So, going into this in particular, right? The two different mindsets, an employee and a entrepreneur or boss mindset. Now, let's break down these two mindsets. This is not difficult. This is simple thought process, right? Now, the employee's mindset is, I need to find a job. I need to get a paycheck to come in, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly. Typically, those are the two ways that an employee would get paid. Either every 2 weeks or every 1 week, right? Okay, so for you to be able to earn this paycheck, that means you have to fulfill a set skill or do a certain amount of a certain required job, for one. And then for two, you have to do that for a certain amount of hours every single day, or whatever amount of time you've agreed upon when you took that job. Typically, it's 40 hours a week. Most people work. You got people who work 30 hours, etc. That doesn't make too much of a difference. But we're just talking about the mindsets of these two different types of individuals, right? You'll have people who work regular jobs. They clock in 40 hours a week. Nothing wrong with it. Typically, that's how a lot of folks start off. They work a regular job and they work their way up and they get themselves a skill or a profession to be able to earn more and do better down the road, right? The problem is with the mindset of an employee is that if they are not exchanging their time for pay, they're not going to get anything. That means you're not going to be able to live life to the fullest and enjoy yourself if you're not earning something, right? But also, in a nutshell, someone that thinks with an employee mindset, right, they typically are very critical of people trying to become bosses, right? Now, the contradictory is real heavy there. It's very heavy because if you guys are, you try to contradict someone who's trying to focus on becoming an entrepreneur, here's the contradiction. The contradiction lies in where you try to convince someone that it's not possible. For you to try to convince someone that it's not possible to become a boss is the most asinine thought process in the world, right? For you to even think that, because here's the thing, as an employee, you're looking to go get a job from someone else. Clearly, that entrepreneur or boss had to be able to think different from you so that way you can have a job. Think about that, right? So the mindset of a boss or an entrepreneur is someone who actually creates jobs for other people. They are in a position to pay others to do certain jobs or have certain skill sets to be able to accomplish what they require for their business, right? And even though the employees are the lifeblood of any business, we gotta give them their respect, period, because an employee is the lifeblood of any business. So that's why you have to have a level of respect for your employees, because if it wasn't for them, the business would not be alive. So for someone to criticize, for one, someone that thinks like that is completely stupid. And then for number two, you don't even realize how powerful your position is within the company. Because if it wasn't for the employees, there wouldn't be no company, right? But here's where the problem lies in the employee mindset. It's because typically that position is easily replaceable. That means you can train other people to be able to fulfill that position. So that means the employee is expandable. Even though the employee is an asset on one hand, because they're the one that does the nitty gritty jobs and the work, whatever it may be, whether it's physical or it's some type of assembly line, or it's, fulfilling customer service, etc. Right? You are expandable because your position can be learned by someone else. Right? But the boss is not expandable. The boss in most cases is irreplaceable, because he's the one that keeps everything running. He's the one that's cutting the checks. Even though your performance as an employee is the one that allows the business to stay afloat, the boss controls the payments out to the employees and the workers. Right? So shouldn't there be a point in everyone's life where they transition from an employee to an entrepreneur or a boss? Absolutely. There should be a point in time where you got to start to think like, listen, understanding your job and your role and being in a company for so many years, you start to see things that you didn't see when you first got there. As time progresses and you're working with the company for so many years, you can literally see how your position actually benefits the company. In a lot of cases, what you're contributing to that company. Now, as an example, let's take customer service / sales position, right? Well, let's just take customer service for that matter. You're typically taking orders, or you are actually speaking with customers who may have purchased a product and having an issue, and you're handling that, right? And let's just say, let's take let's take a supermarket, for instance, right? An employee will typically, ring up the register for a customer coming into the supermarket and spending, let's say, $200 on groceries, right? That employee actually managed, right, handling that customer going through their purchase. Ringing everything up, making sure everything is accurate in the price and everything lines up to be able to give that person the amount of what everything is going to come out to, and for that customer to actually pay for what they require from the supermarket, right? Now, the employee had nothing to do with making sure that the product was in the stores. All they did was make sure the customer actually got through the sale. But if it wasn't for the employee to do that, the company wouldn't be able to get that sale, because who's going to ring the register up, go through the process of bagging everything up for the customer? Because these days we don't even see baggers. Usually the person that rung up the register is also bagging the groceries for you as well. So they're doing usually the position of two people, but they're getting still paid for the amount of one person. But who's benefiting from that? Usually the owner. So if, let's say, the owner of that supermarket has 10 employees and they have 10 lanes, right? So that means there's typically someone at each register getting rung up while their line's building up. So the owner may have paid, let's say, for a box of cereal, someone's purchasing a box of cereal for $6. Box of cereal is easily $5-6 these days. But the store owner is probably making $2 off of each box of cereal sold, because obviously they got to pay for the product. Then they able to keep the difference as the owner of the company. So they're getting paid probably about $2 for every single box of cereal. But if you think about it, the employee's getting a percentage of that as well. Usually, out of that box of cereal, the employee may be getting a couple of cents, because they're getting paid hourly versus getting paid a percentage of the sales. So we got to start to really look at these things, right? We got to be more observant in life to be able to spot out, ways that we can get ourselves out of that employee mindset, right? A lot of folks are in that employee mindset. I was in that employee mindset at one point in time. I've been an employee for many years, but the profession I chose was sales, so it was a little bit different. I've always been able to live above average because I chose a profession in sales. That's the highest paying profession on the planet. You can look it up for yourself. Now, so in regards to the employee mindset, right? You can't and should never criticize someone who's trying to accomplish success at business. Because if it wasn't for that person thinking the way they think, you wouldn't be in a position, for example, that supermarket, to be able to be at that register, to ring up everybody up and get them through the line and get products sold. Because usually the owner doesn't have the time to be able to do that. And typically, if the supermarket's doing well, he definitely not going to have the time to do it. So he's going to have to get the help to be able to get it out. But the whole point of the matter is, off of that box of cereal, let's say the company or the supermarket owner makes $2 off every box of cereal, right? Out of that $2, he may give a couple of cents to that employee for that particular sale. And they may not even get it directly from the box of cereal, but you understand the concept. The owner is making the bulk of the income through that sale that the cashier made at that supermarket. That's how the person at the register gets paid, from the sales of the supermarket. So as an example, let's say a supermarket, because supermarkets make some good money, right? Let's say in a day, a supermarket, let's say it has 10 employees. Usually there's more than that, because you got people in the back and the deli, you got people in the bakery, you have people at whatever particular businesses that are established in there. Also, they have employees there. So let's say an average supermarket probably has about 20 employees, right? So let's go to the numbers. We always go into the numbers, right? So let's say a supermarket has about 20 employees. Okay? Now, each employee is averaging, let's say they're getting about $11 an hour. Sounds about right. Reasonable. Employee in the supermarket get about $11 an hour, right? So even let's do 15, because minimum wage is about 15 now, if I'm not mistaken, if it's actually in effect. So let's say an average employee in that store is getting $15 an hour. They make about $40. They make about 40 hours, work 40 hours a week, right? These days, people aren't even getting 40 hours a week. A lot of businesses are cutting back on hours because they don't want you guys to hit overtime for nothing. These companies are not paying you overtime. They rather get an extra employee and cut down the hours on everybody overall. So, but let's just keep it at that, just for conversation piece. So they're getting paid about $15 an hour times 40 hours a week. So that's about $600 a week an employee is making there. And let's say that there's about 20 employees, as I mentioned, right? So there's about 20 employees. So that's about $12,000 a week from 20 employees within a supermarket. So that means that that owner is paying out $12,000 a week. Wait a minute, hold on, that's not correct. That's 40 hours times $15 an hour. That's $600 for one employee times 20 employees. Okay, it's right. So that's $12,000, right? That's $12,000 for 20 employees that works within, let's say, a neighborhood supermarket. Nothing big, nothing like Walmart or Publix or anything like that. So we're focused on, let's say, a supermarket that's putting out $12,000 a week to the employees. Typically, employees are getting paid every 2 weeks who work in a supermarket, right? So we'll divide that, multiply that by 2. So that's $24,000 every 2 weeks for about 20 employees. Now, that supermarket is most likely generating, especially if it's a local supermarket, and depending on the demographics of a town or a city. Now, that's a whole different conversation talking about demographics. In other words, demographics is the a body count of people within a city or a certain town or vicinity, approximately determining how far that supermarket is from the surrounding area. Because usually people are going to go shop at the closest supermarket or the closest store where they know that they can get a good deal on things that they eat on a regular basis. Most folks are not going to go out of their way past that particular supermarket, especially if it's been established for many years. Most folks are going within that vicinity. So that's the demographics. The radius of the distance between the supermarket and the next supermarket in that particular city. So most folks are going to go to the closest supermarket. So that's the demographics of that particular supermarket, right? So usually, just for rule of thumb, it's probably about maybe 2-mile radius that people, because usually there's maybe a supermarket within 2-3 miles from that particular supermarket, maybe closer. But let's just say 2 miles away is the nearest supermarket. So meaning that the folks within a 1-mile radius of that supermarket are usually going to shop there. A 1-mile radius covers a large area of land, right? When it comes down to that radius. So you're probably looking at easily within that radius of a 1 mile from that supermarket, there's probably about, let's say, at least 5,000 houses within that radius of a mile. Yeah, that's probably about 5,000 houses within a radius of that mile. Now, each household has at least 2 people in it. So that's at least 10,000 people who would shop at that particular supermarket, right? Boom, we're going somewhere with this. So 10,000 people, and not at any given time, there's not going to be 10,000 people in that supermarket. So you could easily say within any given time, there's probably about maybe 10% of those 10,000 people that will shop in that supermarket within a week's time. So let's go ahead and use that number as a rule of thumb. So at least 1,000 people are going to shop in that supermarket within a span of a week. Usually within a span of a month, those 10,000 people are shopping at that supermarket, right? But let's just say 10%. So that's about 1,000 people that's going to shop within a week's time. The average person that's going to spend probably about at least $100 easy in a supermarket. So 1,000 people within a 1 mile radius of that supermarket will spend at least $100, right, within a week. Then that's not all of the people within that radius, right? So if you multiply that 1,000 times $100, They're going to average spend in a week's time. They're going to spend at least $100. So that supermarket in a week's time is making about at least a supermarket is probably making at least $100,000. Walmart's make way more than that. So, Publix, larger supermarkets make way more than that, right? So that's local neighborhood supermarket, which is a decent size. A mom and pop supermarket usually owns it. They're making at least. Let's just say I put 100,000. If you cut that in half, they're making at least $50,000 a week. All right? They're making at least $50,000 a week in that supermarket. So if you multiply that by 4 a month, that's 200,000. They're probably making way more than that, but I'm lowballing the numbers just to give you guys an idea of the benefits when it comes down to being an entrepreneur versus being an employee. So that supermarket is generating at least $200,000 a month. Most likely more than that. But let's just use the $200,000 number, right? So we already know that those 20 employees who run the supermarket and keep it going, handling customers that come in through there on a consistent basis, right? They're only paying $12,000 out a week. Multiply that by 4. That's $48,000 that owner of that supermarket pays out on a monthly basis to all 20 employees who run and manage and keep that store going, who taking orders and make sure that register cha-chings, right? So let's just round it off and say $50,000 payout every single month for his 20 employees. That business owner is taking home $150,000 net. Excuse me, gross, because taxes haven't been paid. But they're not paying taxes every month. They're paying taxes usually every year. So that business owner who runs that basic supermarket in the neighborhood, which is easily, and I'm lowballing the numbers, they're making way more than $150,000. Believe that, no questions about it. So they're making at least $150,000 in sales take home, and then of course they have to factor in to cover the cost of keeping the shelves filled with the products and services. So let's just say their overhead is easily, let's say $50,000. That business owner is making $100,000 take home every single month, minimum. And that's just a small mom and pop supermarket. We're not talking about nothing seriously big. So don't criticize the boss when you're an employee. Learn how to do these things. Learn how to be a boss yourself before you start criticizing other people for trying to be bosses or hating on somebody that's trying to be a boss or focus on being a boss. Because if it wasn't for that person thinking the way they think, you wouldn't even have a job to be able to get your $600 a week. Right? So that's about a $1.2 million a year. You bagging all the groceries. He just kicking back and just pretty making sure the shelves stay filled. And cutting the checks out to you guys for $600 every week. And you got the nerve to try to criticize someone, focus on doing better for their life? Y'all some haters. Let's just say that right now. Y'all be hating for real. The hate is real out there. My goodness, I can't believe this nonsense here. For someone to try to criticize someone trying to be a boss, you should be able to encourage them. Because if you help encourage them to become a boss, they might turn around later on down the road. When you start to realize what it is, and you want to do the same thing, they're going to encourage you, clearly, because they're going to remember the fact that you encouraged them. Y'all just like crabs in a bucket. That's the problem with a lot of folks out here. Crabs in a bucket. That I just broke down how versus an employee and a boss, and when the difference in pay. That boss is getting paid more than 20 people together. He's only paying those 20 people about $50,000 a month, while he walks away with, or she walks away with $100 to $150,000 easy. And I cut them numbers in half. They're probably making more, close to $250,000 a year, take home, after taxes, after paying their employees. No, excuse me, $250,000 a month off of regular basic supermarket. If you guys understand demographics and supply and demand, you become rich in a couple of years, easy. You become a millionaire in a couple of years, easy. If you can understand those basic concepts. Demographics, supply and demand. Because if you can figure out what's needed in any given area in the country, and you fulfill that need, you will become wealthy. Right? But I'm going to cut this short. I just wanted to share that with you guys. The difference between an employee and an entrepreneur or boss. There's many different examples I can come up with. That's just one of them I wanted to share with you guys based on a supermarket. You can use that same concept when it comes down to a clothing store. You know what I'm saying? Usually you want to kind of go more along the lines based upon what people are buying in the area. You may want to run a survey of the area to figure out what people want in a certain area at any given time in any part of the country. If you can figure out what people want and you get their, an answer from them, it's worth you even paying somebody to go knock on people's doors and ask them a basic set of questions. Like, listen, hey, we're getting ready to open up, we're thinking about doing this, or this in the area. What do you think would be more beneficial if we open up this kind of store, that kind of store, or this kind of business, or that kind of business, right? The people are going to tell you what they want. You can go get a survey of a 1 mile radius of a given area, find out what these people require in that area. They may have a certain, everybody may be in agreement with something. And if you can get, 1,000 people to say that, yes, that would be beneficial if we had this particular kind of store in this area, it would be beneficial to us in the neighborhood. Boom. You just solved the problem right there. Now you're in a position to get wealth. It's going to cost you to set it up, obviously. Everything costs, but nonetheless, the ability to be able to do it is there. Right? Also, if you guys want to learn how to be better in life, you guys want to learn how to, figure out what's best suited for you as an individual, get yourself a numerology report. Get yourself an astrology report, or you can actually get a life coaching session with me. Okay? I can go ahead and steer you guys in the right direction. In the next 2 to 3 years, you could be sitting 100% better than you are right now. No questions about it. All right? So, actually, I would prefer you guys to reach out to me in the comments. My emails are flooded right now. I got at least about 500,000 to almost 1 million emails in my inbox, and I'm probably not going to open up a lot of them. I'm going to get to as many as possible as I can. But I would prefer you guys leave a comment for me, so that way we can have a conversation in the comments, and if we can come to some type of agreement on one of my particular services that I offer, then you can go ahead and shoot me an email, so that way I can go ahead and put it in a certain category in an envelope, or in a folder, and know exactly we can correspond that way, and I know who I'm talking to. I want to actually be able to connect with my subscribers and the people who leave comments. All right? Thank you, YouTube, and peace.